Welcome to an exciting program. We have a very exciting program in that we have a theme that I guess is so popular that ran over the edge of the pool, and we are going to do the same theme again next month. At one point, I had 18 that wanted to speak on this topic here, and then 2 or 3 of them came up. There was somebody who got injured, and somebody had an appointment that came up, and somebody had to go to Vegas for business. But anyway, we have assigned 15. We have a couple yet that still have to come in the door, but Connie's out there guarding the door. But it was so popular that some people, for various reasons, couldn't have come. Like Michael is going to do it next month when he's out of town anyway. He lives up north, so Michael Ozier is going to speak next month, and we may have some others that definitely, for one reason or another, would not have been able to be here. So we will have quite a number of them next month, and so many of the stories I've heard about are pretty exciting and pretty interesting, and they're all over the map. But we will begin. First of all, as always, I want to thank all those people that have helped to make this thing work. And part of it is Sandy Emolito making sure we were signed up for the location. I expect every time I walk in here, I expect to walk in here sometime and having the police sending me down the road. So what are you doing here? But we're here, and we're still going to hold on to this place as long as possible, because that does give them people an opportunity to speak to a larger room, even if it isn't always filled. And so, but I was surprised last month. I made an announcement that we had 20 or so in the room, and about 50 at one point signed in to see what was going on. Of course, we don't know how many might have seen it later, because all of our meetings are on YouTube and they can be accessed, which is what I recommend. If someone is thinking about becoming a qualified speaker, I will allow them to go back and maybe make up some of those 5 meetings they have to have before they can even apply, by seeing a couple of the other ones that I always recommend trying to see one in which someone earned their QS. So you see what are the standards that we are seeking to achieve. And of course, you all know that you have to have a coach and talk to me ahead of time. And so I know ahead of time that's part of your plan. At this point, I think there's a very good chance we'll have 3 going for their qualified speaker in November, and probably the full program with many more being online next month. And so that will be a full program again of school stories. But we have a number of exciting school stories tonight. I think just about everybody on my list is here. I'm certainly glad to see some people in the audience that I know sometimes can't make it at this meeting. Sharon, good to see you here. And thank you for all the work you do putting together the flyers, and so that we get a little bit of publicity out there and get that sent out. That's a good thing. I thank the district for supporting Speakers Bureau. Some of you may not know it, but all districts don't have a Speakers Bureau. So we're one of those that does. And so we're very happy about that. So we're going to try to keep that going. It'll be interesting next year when we're combined with another 70 or so clubs out in Vegas and so on. And we'll probably not too many will probably want to drive here from Las Vegas to be in person at our Speakers Bureau meeting. So who knows? But anyway, they're going to combine us with a number of other clubs to expand the size of the district. So anyway, with that, pretty soon we're going to get on to our meeting, and we have a little bit of time, and I do have to set up somebody to be the timer. Also thank our technology person, that without him we wouldn't have it done. And yeah, everybody, give Rob an applause, a round of applause. Yes, and of course, it wouldn't make sense to thank everybody without thanking the participants for being here. Without participants, we wouldn't have a program. So. All right, we are ready to go, I think, and I am going to start with our first speaker, which may or may not have anything to do with the theme, but he wanted to speak, and I talked to him, and he convinced me. He was persuasive enough. So, Tom, are you here somewhere? I'm looking out there to make sure. Yes, Tom Johnson will be coming in. He's from, if I'm not mistaken, is it Rancho? Yeah, come on up, and then I won't give much introduction to many people, but we'll give him a little bit, because he was so persuasive, convinced me to speak, even though I wasn't convinced he was speaking on school stories. So what club are you from?
5247 Rancho Cucamonga.
Rancho Cucamonga. Okay, representing 5247 Rancho Cucamonga, Tom Johnson, with his topic, Are You Open-Minded? Which automatically made me give him an invitation to the debate club. because you got to be open-minded and go in there and debate on all these weird topics. All right, here you go. We'll shake your hand, and then I'll give you the equipment so that you can be properly heard. And let you put that down, and I will go work on my speech. Not as easy as it looks, is it? Oh, let me try it.
Yeah, I
It's
can't.
a little easier if someone else sometimes could do it better than you can yourself. Yeah. All right, I hope that works. Test, make sure you can be heard.
Turn on a switch here. Can you hear me? All right. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Professor Adam Grant at the Wharton School in Pennsylvania says that one goal of learning is to revise old views in light of new facts. Education should not shield your current views from new facts. Professor Grant said, a mark of an open mind is to be more committed to your curiosity than to your convictions. Being open-minded means being capable of changing your views, and that's a part of critical thinking. As citizens of a self-governing republic, it's in our best interest to be open-minded. Our best scientists are always exploring new ideas and guided by new discoveries. New facts are primary drivers of scientific advancement. But even among scientists, there is sometimes resistance to new ideas. When Einstein proposed the theory of relativity, some of his peers resisted. Einstein challenged long-standing ideas about space and time that have been taught for generations. Later, in the maelstrom of new ideas that shook physics a century ago, Einstein himself sometimes had trouble accepting new ideas. He resisted the idea of quantum mechanics, in which random events play a critical role. Einstein famously said, God does not play dice with the universe. Keeping an open mind, even for scientists, is hard. In the general public, old ideas, even ridiculous ones, persist. Some of these ideas, regrettably, come from religion, despite their flaws. I can think of no better example than the story of Noah and the ark. You may be offended by what I'm about to say, but I challenge you to put aside your emotions and consider some simple facts. I assume you know the gist of Noah's story. You've probably seen colorful pictures of animals going 2 by 2, entering an immense wooden boat. Allegedly, when Noah's Ark came to rest somewhere in Turkey, it released the only survivors of a global flood. This story may have seemed plausible to our ancient ancestors, given their limited view of geography. Perhaps you've seen maps of the world that were drawn at the zenith of the Roman Empire. At the left, you had the Mediterranean. Around it, you had the shores of the lands that the Romans knew of. The only continents they were aware of, Europe, Asia, and Africa, are all connected. This made it plausible that animals leaving Noah's Ark could have walked to where we find their kind today. Elephants could have walked to Africa. Siberian tigers could have walked to Northern Asia, and so on for all species. But beginning in the 15th century, knowledge of geography increased. Old World people became aware of the Americas. Later, they became aware of Australia. New facts. Populating these new worlds were new animals. North America has possums, the raccoons. Australia has kangaroos. More new facts. An open-minded person might reasonably ask, how could a kangaroo get from Turkey to Australia, crossing miles of open ocean? A Caribbean island near Panama is home to a species of three-toed sloth. The sloth is a lethargic herbivore. It spends its days lounging in trees, eating leaves. A sloth makes Homer Simpson look ambitious. Is it plausible that a sloth would have the energy to swim to Panama from the old world? No. Common sense tells us that Noah's story is a myth. Some will say that critical thinking does not apply to Noah's story. They might say it is a matter of faith. You might have one set of ideas that are subject to critical analysis, and another set that are beyond question. But as long as it is socially acceptable to compartmentalize beliefs, rational ones and ones we don't analyze, we will have trouble maintaining our democracy with a diverse population with different ideas. Our government was designed by rational people. It works best in the hands of open-minded people. But if beliefs that are shielded from critical thought continue to influence our politics, there will be a tension between faith and rational thought. Our best chance to keep our self-governing republic is to encourage open-mindedness in all areas of inquiry and policy. Thank you. Easier to get off.
All right, now I know I want you to come to debate. All right, one thing I was remiss in doing, since I'll shake a finger at that person that was supposed to be my timer, and look for a timer. Do I have a volunteer to be timer? I do have all the equipment for it, so that if someone wants to do it, Dominique, that's good, because I was going to make you do it if nobody volunteered. So there you go. This is that, and I will give you the cards and let you know that we won't flagellate anybody that goes over 5 minutes. If they go to 6. Well, I said that mostly because I think I might go over. If you're going to be in a contest, try to make your own rules. Okay, there you go. All right, let's see who gets to be the next volunteer. Well, I think I will start with, well, what a place to start. Of course, it makes sense to start with Deborah Gillis, because her speech title is A New Beginning. A New Beginning, My School Story. Deborah Gillis, A New Beginning, My School Story. Okay, I'll just hold that and I'll figure out a way to do this without getting slapped. Okay. That works.
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My story is not just about school, but it's about courage and transition. I grew up in the South with a family of 8 children. We were rooted in love, faith, and tradition. My education, starting to school, was different than my siblings. You see, I started school, high school, in an integrated school. You might think, that's simple, but for that time period, it was a courageous movement. You see, that was a step my family had not engaged in before. in an integrated school. My siblings had not had the opportunity to do that. But I wanted to be different. The first day entering that school, I felt like the weight of history was on my shoulders. It was very intimidating. It was very scary. But I knew that my education was upon me. It was the beginning of an era my family had not had that threshold before. It was encouraging, it was scary. There were moments of discomfort, but there were also moments of connection, of laughter, of gathering information, gathering history. Because you see, I was the beginning of my family's threshold, starting in an integrated school in the South. The doors were open for me. It opened up for my younger brother, my niece and nephew. They too could see that they could sit side by side and learn from others, not of their own nationality. With empathy, knowing that they could learn different things other than math and science, there was unity, there was courage, there was a lot of laughter. My family was enthused because the generation when I started was giving encouragement for the next generation to move forward, to be able to step into a generation where lives seem to be disemboweled, challenging the era of integration, segregation. It's not about the building or not my personal achievement being in that building. It was a bridge that I crossed over. It was about opening doors for those coming behind me within my family. I say to those who have doubt about anything that's discouraging them, take that step. One step can bring unity, can bring courage. Walk forward. You never know how that one step can bridge a generation to a new beginning.
Yeah, very good. Got a school system. Okay. Well, now I think you have a taste of why I was sure this was going to be a very successful program, because one of the nice things, and I say that about table topics too, is we get to know each other as human beings, our life experiences, those things that have been snippets in our life that maybe influence our future. And the more we learn about each other, the closer we come to each other, and the closer we are as a Toastmaster family, which is a term I used a long time ago in my district theme, but also a theme I think Moose is using in his oftentimes when he talks about the way the district is moving. So that's just a taste of it, and that's why I'm so glad it was a popular topic and will be a popular topic next month. Our next speaker is, I don't know whether you're up to putting this on while I get your title out, but let's see if you do that, and if you have a problem, I will help. Our next speaker is Michelle Alheiser for Mr. Studley. For Mr. Studley. Michelle Alheiser. You notice I'm not giving anybody anything. I think pass it together, hit it out, they just get their name and their title. That's all you get. Are you okay? Got it? Okay.
I too can't be contained behind a lectern. Mr. Studley was my favorite teacher growing up. I got lucky. I had him for both 5th and 6th grade. That meant that I had plenty of time to be good for Mr. Studley. I got A's on all my tests. I turned in all my assignments before they were due. There was just one small flaw. I couldn't resist talking in class. I drove Mr. Studley crazy. He tried giving me stern looks. He tried pulling me to the front of the classroom. He tried giving me extra work. I just finished my work and then went back to talking in class. Then Mr. Studley settled on another form of punishment, writing sentences. Did anyone out there have to write sentences when they were in school? It started small, but it grew. I will not talk in class 100 times. I will not talk in class 200 times. One day, Mr. Studley grew too exasperated, and he came and he growled at me. I will keep my big mouth shut in class and stop bugging poor Mr. Studley 5,000 times. Whoa. The whole class gasped. Later, he told me, don't worry, you don't have to do that. I'm sorry. And I left more chastised than if he had made me do it. So I decided to do it anyway. I raced home from school. I started writing and writing and writing. I couldn't really fathom how much 5,000 sentences were when I started this project. I worked every second of every day, early in the morning, late at night. I even snuck a flashlight into the bedroom and worked in the middle of the night while everyone else was asleep. But I did it. 150 pages later, I did it. I ran to school and straight to Mr. Studley. Thwap on his desk. Done, I crowed. He looked horror-stricken. I told you you didn't have to do it. And I said, I know, but I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Did that project make me stop talking in class? No. Did Mr. Studley love me anyway? Yes. And I guess what I learned is if there's love, you'll forgive just about anything. Mr. So here's this, and here's that.
All right, thank you, thank you. Okay. All right, that was fun. Now, let me get on to our next speaker. And I saw the title of the speech and I was so intrigued, I couldn't help but wonder what Nancy DeVore was going to talk about with her title, Arrested for Too Much Color. Arrested for Too Much Color, Nancy DeVore.
I just hold it.
And maybe this case I might be able to do it easier than you.
Thank you. Click. That was the sound that I heard when two police officers walked up to me and they fastened my hands behind my back into cufflinks, not cufflinks,
Handcuffs, exactly. I was 15 at the time, and it was a Sunday afternoon. And I had just talked to my friend about going with me up to school, to our high school, and decorating our lockers with paint. We had already decorated our lockers on the inside. Beautiful job by both of us. But there was this one boy that we just wanted to keep teasing. And we kept putting notes in his locker through the front of the door of the locker to let him know we were thinking of him, but we wouldn't sign it. So he never knew who was giving him these notes. We always would watch and see if he would turn around and look for whoever gave the note, and we'd be hiding and just cracking up laughing. Well, this time we wanted to go up to the school and paint our own lockers, the fronts of them. And when we did this, we took a bucket with us, bucket and arm, walked up to the school. The lockers were outside in an open corridor. So we could just walk up to the lockers and do whatever we wanted. And the whole reason behind this was the entire building was beige. Who does that? It has to be a color. And so we started painting the fronts of our lockers. And as we did this, the light bulb went on and I said, let's go paint Craig's locker, the boy we had been chasing and teasing. So we took the bucket over, we started going over his locker with all these great paintings of things, birds, rainbows, everything you could think of that would be important to us, but not so much to him. And then I got this brilliant idea. Why limit ourselves to the fronts of the lockers? Let's do the whole corridor with our paint that we brought with us. So I started painting all the lockers in our entire row, and I took the paintbrush, Jackson Pollock style, and went up and down the corridor, spattering paint everywhere, floors, lockers, anything that the paint could find. And my friend looked at me and said, Nancy, what are you doing? And I said, this is too beige. It's just calling out for more color. And she just looked at me like, I don't think so. And then I just kept going. I heard this little voice down at the end of the corridor. And she says, Nancy, look, it's the police. And I turned around, and sure enough, there were two policemen. They weren't walking toward me, they were running toward me, because you know how dangerous a paintbrush can be. So that was the story that Sunday afternoon. Now I turned around and my friend was long gone. She had just run down the other way. But now, to my parents' joy, I graduated high school. And after I painted those lockers, I had to meet with my guidance counselor. And I sat down with him and he said, why did you do this? And I told him the same thing that I told the officers, because it's beige. It sounded like a good idea at the time, but he didn't think that was a very good reason. So he assigned me to clean the paint off of all these lockers along with the custodians of the school. And then when I graduated from high school, I decided, the guidance counselor said, you know, you need to channel that energy somewhere else than the lockers. And he said, you have to sign up for an art class. And so I did that. And from there, I went on to study design and transferred to a school that taught art and design. And I felt so at home there because everyone else was passionate about everything but beige. But for teenagers, their passions run very high. And they often get bored, like I did, thinking that I needed to paint all those lockers. But one thing that happened for me after I graduated college is I got to do a lot more with color. I got to work with a branding company in New York, and I got to work for a company that was on the Fortune 100 list and go around and give presentations on color and why color matters to CEOs. So I got to take my passion for color and translate that into something to do for a living. The click of the handcuffs turned into me understanding what really clicked for me in life.
All right, thank you very much. And we go on to another speaker. And this speaker will be talking about costume, I guess, clothing, bell bottoms and flares. Brian Rowley, bell bottoms and flares. Can't imagine what his speech is about, but we will find out. So we'll go that way, and we'll shake a hand, and we'll give you a microphone. Get out of your way. All right.
Can you hear me? All right. I'm looking out in the crowd to see the age group I have here, because I know that most of you are old enough to know when bell bottoms became popular. But do you know the original intent of bell bottoms and how they got started? I see some no shaking heads. Okay. Well, bell bottoms were started in the Navy. Yeah, you knew that. Okay. And the reason they had them was to make it so it was easy to roll up your pant legs. If you were, swabbing down the deck and, the water's washing over, keeps you from getting your pants wet. And if you fell overboard for some reason, it'd be easy to get your pants off, right? Think about the tight ankles and trying to get your pants off your ankles. Well, the bell bottoms made it easy to get your pants off if you happen to go overboard. So really good reasons for bell bottoms. I mean, who else needs a lot of room, not more room around their ankle, right? It's kind of silly looking anywhere else. But then in the 60s, the anti-war movement people decided to adopt that as a fashion, as a statement against the war. I read about all of this and I thought, well, that's how it got started. But then later in the 70s, it transitioned to flares. Remember flares? Saturday Night Fever? All those guys wearing flares, right? That was the fashion. Well, in my school, in fact, in most high schools, you trade in a currency. Does anyone know the name of the currency in school, in high school? I know my wife does. It's cool, right? In school, you want to be cool. Because if you're not cool, well, you're not cool. That's not cool. So I remember this one incident where I saw a group of my would-be peers having so much fun at the table in the lunchroom, and they were playing the song and singing the song, and I remember the song. It's called Black Dog by Led Zeppelin. So I was in high school in the 70s, and I walked over and I thought it would be cool if I could join this group and have fun with them. And one of the kids looked at me and he said, "You're not cool. You don't even wear flares." And I thought, huh, okay, well, I remember walking away and thinking, what an odd way to discriminate. And I swore, I promised myself on that day, I will never wear flares because I would never want to be like the kind of people who would discriminate against somebody based on how they dress. And I didn't. I never wore flares in school. I confess I did wear them later because some of my cooler friends wore flares. And some of them knew how to dance, and they said, hey, if you want to get girls, you're going to have to put on the flares. You're going to have to learn how to dance. If you want to go out and do this. I only bought flares because it was in this vest and pants ensemble that I put together, and I had some really cool boots that went with it, and they looked really good. The flares with the boots made sense. It looked so good. I even have a really great photograph of me with my family wearing flares. But I'll never forget deciding on that day that I didn't want to be a member of a group. I didn't want to be a member of any group after that. I thought, you've got the motorheads, you got the jocks, you got the brainiacs, you got all these groups in school who are cool in their groups, and I didn't want to be that kind of cool. So I actually doubled down on my self-reliance because of this one incident. And I have a lot further to go with the idea of self-reliance, how it is good and bad for you in many ways. And I will save that for a speech in a future time, but you won't see me wearing flares anytime soon. Mr. Toastmaster.
Take this and get this ready for our next speaker. Yep. And I am ready to announce our next speaker. As soon as she's hooked up and live on camera, she will be giving her speech. Marjorie Benish, first day. Marjorie Benish, first day. Okay.
There are many firsts in our life. Do you remember all of your firsts? Tom and friends, do you remember your first date? Your first kiss? Your first driving the car? Or maybe your first day of school? If you're close to my generation, you might remember school desk where the top of the desk lifted up and there was storage space underneath. Our crayons were in there, our papers were in there, our lunchbox was in there. The first day of school, when you might be scared or nervous, there might be something else in there, but I'll get back to that. 1954, Novato, California. I was looking forward to my first day of school. My first day of school was kindergarten. There was no preschool in our school. My brothers had already been going to that school for a couple years. I didn't want to be left behind. I like tagging along behind my brothers. So yes, I was ready for the first day of school. My hair was in pigtails. I had a new dress. It was actually a skirt and blouse. It was light green, a lighter color of green than this blouse. It was almost yellow. My dad had brought it to me from Silver City, New Mexico. A full skirt, a low neck blouse with sleeves, pale green, almost yellow, silver braiding throughout the blouse and skirt, silver threads, silver rickrack, the silver and greenish yellow dress. I was so proud of it. Actually a skirt and blouse, but I still thought of it as a dress. And yes, I was ready for my first day of school, first day of kindergarten. I didn't even worry about saying goodbye to Mom. I was ready. I had been to the school before. We had events with my brothers, so I was used to it. And I got my assigned desk, and I was sitting down. The other kids were sitting down. The teacher was asking us, "What did you do this summer?" And one at a time, kids were telling about what they were doing this summer. All of a sudden, the girl in front of me lifted up her desk lid, bent over it, and I heard and smelled the and then a little boy started it, lifted up his desk, and then all of us kids, we got recess right away. while the janitors were called in to clean up the desk. The kids had been scared and nervous and got sick. So we had a lovely long recess. I remember the fun of the recess. And I remember seeing janitors come into the room and leave. Finally, Miss Smith called us back to the classroom because we had had a nice recess. It was now nap time. We brought little rugs from home and laid them out on the floor of the schoolroom. We had naps, and the teacher was telling a story quietly. Then we had lunchtime. The girl who had been sitting in front of me, she wasn't there. And the other little boy, I noticed he wasn't there. But it didn't bother me. The smell was gone. The classroom smelled like lemon, and I like lemon. So I remember first day of kindergarten fondly because of our long recess, our wonderful nap, my nice lunch that Mom made, and my new dress from Silver City, New Mexico. Tom.
Well, I wish I would have known about that throw up idea. I might have had a lot more recesses in my class. So Connie and I celebrated our 61st wedding anniversary on Saturday. And you're talking about I remember my first kiss, and it doesn't seem possible that it wasn't Connie. Now it comes out after all these years. And I think most of the courage I started to, and she said, when I backed off and she had her eyes closed, all ready to be kissed, and I backed off and she said, chicken. So I kissed her. But the sad part of that story is that she ended up being more interested in girls later on than guys. And I always worried whether I had an influence on that decide of her taking her choice. Anyway, we will get away from my own tragic romance in that era when I was 14 or 15 or whatever it was. And we will go on to our next speaker, which is, there's my list here. I have it all set and decided. It was, I can't read my own writing. That's what I should have studied harder. We will go to, that wasn't supposed to, oh, Cora. Cora is here and her topic is Through the Eyes of a Child, with other more perfect topics to talk about on a school-themed meeting. Through the Eyes of a Child. Cora, did I pronounce it right? Gan? Gan. Okay, Cora, here you go. You have this.
All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, He made their glowing colors, He made their tiny wings. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters in the room and on Zoom, and esteemed guests. Imagine yourself to be in Sunday school classroom full of excited children listening to stories that shape your life. As a Sunday school teacher,
I guided a spiritual discovery and conversation, created safe space for little kids to create ideas and share experiences. This is my short story as a Sunday school teacher. Many years ago, one Sunday, springtime, I asked a group of 4-year-olds to look in the window, it's springtime, and enjoy the beauty of nature, God's creation. I asked the children, pick one that you like and draw it. So they all ran, got their paper and drawing pen, and started to draw. Except this little girl in a corner. I wasn't sure if she understood the instruction because she wasn't drawing. I have learned as I was going through the certification process to be a Sunday school teacher through the Los Angeles Archdiocese that we have to look at the level of the kids. Adults like us, we see it as it is. Young kids, they see it as it can be. So I approached the little girl and gently lowered myself and I said, "Oh, my dear angel, you know how to trace your hand and fingers." And she said, "No, Miss Cora, I wasn't tracing my hand and fingers. I was drawing, like you asked us. I was drawing a tree, and by God, it does look like a tree." Right? So that day, it was I who learned a lesson instead of me teaching the kids. That we have to see it through the eyes of a child. In closing, I'm gonna recite a poem that I wrote. It's also titled Through the Eyes of a Child. Through the eyes of a child, I see the world needing to learn, needing to be told. How and when will I ever see all the wonders in the world to see? As a child that can grow, my life is aglow, full of hopes, full of dreams, full of courage, full of excitement, a heartfelt wish to give you more. Many times as I lay awake, waiting for the dawn to break, waiting for friends to be able to share wonderful wisdom, wonderful music, I offer to you all that I am, all that is in my heart and my soul. Back to you.
Thank you. And I have a feeling that this next speaker will be inviting you to come visit a club, Connie. I mean, your Readers and Writers Club. I think that might be a perfect invitation. Our next speaker, Connie Jameson, Shaving Cream and the Photo Frame. Shaving Cream and that photo frame, Connie Jameson. Yeah, we'll figure out a way. This way it works here.
Shaving cream. Yes, shaving cream. I used it quite a bit when I was a special education teacher teaching young physically handicapped children. I found that we had very often tabletops, desktops that were pretty dirty. Well, you just take that shaving cream and shh over the top. The children loved to spread it around. They could practice drawing pictures, writing their name, doing shapes, numbers. And finally, you'd have to tell them, okay, time to stop. Wet paper towels would clean it off, and you'd have desktops or tabletops that were nice and clean, and the room smelled wonderful. Later on, Tom, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, shaving cream was used for a very different, unusual, special activity. When I first started teaching special ed, I had physically handicapped children of a very young age. It was called a readiness class. The children were ages 3 and 4 years old. Such little cuties. I had a fellow teacher, we team taught, and we worked hard to teach those children the beginnings of their academic skills, but also we wanted them to have some experiences. You see, our children very often had to wear braces. They had to use walkers, wheelchairs, sometimes helmets. And we wanted them to have some of the experiences that they would be missing as compared to the children that were not physically handicapped. Plus, they would attend occupational therapy or physical therapy in our school, and we could help with the skills that they were trying to teach them, their therapists were trying to teach them. So we came up with this idea. We took a big piece of butcher paper and put it down on the floor of the classroom, a big long piece. And then that shaving cream over the whole piece of butcher paper. With the help of our aide, Anita, Gail and I took children one by one. We took off the braces, the shoes, the socks, rolled up any pant legs, and they were able to have the experience of sliding all around on all that shaving cream. I was much taller than Gail, so it was easier for me to straddle the big piece of butcher paper. The children would be brought to me. I, of course, faced them because I wanted to watch those big smiles and maybe comment to them about what was happening, how they were feeling, what was it like. Gail, by standing behind me, could see those expressions, those big ear-to-ear smiles, the giggles. Oh, they were cute little kids to begin with, and this only made them cuter. Well, Gail decided, we want to remember this. This is so much fun. She ran to get her camera, and we wanted to capture each child. So she would take a picture of Johnny and Susie and on and on and on. Neither Gail nor I ever imagined until we saw that film that was developed that, yeah, there were those great big smiles, cute children, but each one was in a photo frame. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Connie. We have a program here going with self-deprecating humor, but we'll find out what Richard has for us. And Richard's speech. Getting to the title here. As soon as he is ready, we will give you that title. Talking jokes, who's on deck coming up next? The next person can prepare. Yeah, I already told the next. Oh. Richard Snyder, D. Buffet Ole, Richard Snyder.
Like our two previous speakers, I'm going to approach it from the other side, the teacher's side, in reference to the Mr. Studleys of the world. I was Mr. Snyder, or teacher. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, it all started very innocently. It was July 31, 2023. I was going to a buffet with my family, my wife, my children, who adults at that point. We were going to celebrate my sister-in-law's birthday. So my sister-in-law, her husband, and their children were there as well. I had no sooner gotten my food. We've all been to buffets. I had quite a bit on there, on the table, plate. Sat down, started eating, and somebody came to me from the side. And she said, "I think I know you." Well, I looked at my wife and looked at my family. Uh-oh. Remember that song last week? California Hotel? This could be heaven or this could be the other place. Well, I went through my memory. She doesn't look like a former girlfriend. I don't know where this is going to lead. And then she asked, are you a teacher? I said, yeah, I am. Did you used to teach adults? Yes, I did. I knew it. You were my teacher. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for remembering. I had taught adult English as a second language for the first 20 years. And then I had gone into special ed. This is my 11th, 12th year. So I've been approached over the years. But to be remembered, oh my gosh, I felt so good. Well, she went away. She was actually working there. And then she came back later and she just, Mr. Snyder, teacher, I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much. I was so nervous when I came to your class 25 years ago. 25 years ago, I was this tall. Oh, okay, I was this tall 25 years ago. And we're at a buffet in Montclair. And she said, I was so nervous that first day or two. I spoke hardly any English. And I had hardly any education in my home country. I didn't even want to go to school, but I had to. You made learning so much fun. Wow. And I said, thank you. And she said, no, thank you. You were my best teacher. I went on and studied with other teachers, but you were my best because you made learning so much fun. You had fun with the students. And you laughed. You laughed at yourself and you laughed with us. You made learning fun. Oh. Fast forward 2 years. It's June of 2025. And after a wonderful 35-year career, I'm cleaning up. Now, most teachers, it takes one day, but I had a lot of memories, 35 years. I was on my second day, and my wife and my son, I had brought them in on the to get done. And I was going through things, tossing a lot of stuff. It's very hard. Talking about memories. And then I came across a picture drawn by one of my students almost 25 years ago. And he wrote on the back, I dedicate this picture with all my gratitude for all you've done for me. And then his name, signed 8/27/98. I once heard somebody talk about teaching, that people don't go into teaching for the income. I'm sure Tom and Connie and everyone's been an educator agree. They go into it for the outcome. And as I stand here tonight, Margarita and Leo certainly reminded me of why I went into teaching. It's all about the outcome. Mr. Toastmaster. I gotta give my two. By the way, I still remind my wife, I haven't changed in 25 years. They still remember me.
April Rogers, then April Gillis swinging around the tetherball court. You know, this is an adult, mature people. We don't want to talk about swinging, but anyway, swinging around the tetherball court, April Gillis.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. It's 1993. I know, I look young. I was swinging around the tetherball court. But before we go there, let me take a step back. The year before, our family moved during the school year from Fontana to Mentone. And my parents said, shh, don't tell. Why? I didn't understand, but it was the middle of a school season. So we would have had to transfer in the middle. But I wasn't very good at holding secrets. As someone else shared, I love to talk. So I couldn't wait to go and tell my friends. I was in first grade, Miss Day's class. I said, what's my phone number, my house number? They told me. I said, nope, it's 909-794, and I gave the other numbers. They're like, oh. I said, I moved, and you guys are invited. I told them all. Show and tell, guess what my show and tell was? Our new neighborhood had a community pool, and you're all invited. If my parents didn't know, they know now. I was so excited. I had all of my friends, and I couldn't wait. Now, going back to 1993, right after Labor Day, I started my new school year. I didn't realize all of my friends were at the other school. I didn't have any friends. So I was swinging around the tetherball court, just swinging. I didn't know what I was hoping would happen. Was I gonna serve up a good serve? I was average height with everybody then. Well, Bryce walks up to me and says, hi, I'm Bryce. Do you want to play? I said, sure. It beats swinging around the tetherball court by myself. And Bryce did what any good friend would do. She introduced me to her crew: Jessica, Giovanna, Felicia, Heather, and I think there was one more. And we became great friends. We were so cool. Back then, the Mighty Ducks movie had come out, and guess what? Do you guys remember Payless? Well, Payless had Mighty Ducks shoes. So you know what we did? We all got Mighty Ducks matching shoes. We became like the Flying V. We walked together in our Mighty Duck Velcro shoes around the playground, around the tetherball court, the handball court. We were all over the place. What started was swinging around the tetherball court. Ended up with the flying V of friends. Throughout the years, some people moved, changed schools, but there was one from that group that remained. Bryce had introduced me to Heather, to Jessica, Giovanna, Felicia. Others had moved, but Jessica remained. From the tetherball court to the flying V, and now 30-something years later, Jessica and I are still friends. We still call each other. We still hang out. We find things to do. We reminisce about our grand ideas of selling mistletoe from trees to make extra money, or the Babysitters Club, all of these stories. But it all started with swinging around the tetherball court. See, I was alone, but I positioned myself to be friendly. It's often hard when you're alone to open yourself up to something new. But what is your tetherball court today? Are you feeling lonely? Do you know someone who can open up? See, I put myself in a position for someone to say hello, to find me. And from swinging around that tetherball court, I was able to make a lifelong friend. So if you find yourself bored, find your tetherball court, but just make sure it's safe. Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay, well, I think my tetherball court days are over, but we will take that advice to heart. You can probably figure out how to do that. Next speaker, and that is going to tell us about the key to delinquency. Roger Bowman, the key to delinquency.
It's another excruciatingly boring day in middle school algebra. When suddenly the door opens and somebody starts walking in and hands the teacher a note. Interesting. Teacher reads it, whips her face over to me. Roger, you need to go to the principal's office. After class? Right now. Ooh. Out I go. Oh boy, I don't know what's going on. I'm greeted with solemn faces in the staff office. I go up to the door, it's closed. I open the door and I'm greeted by two towering police officers. The principal sitting behind his desk. Come in, Roger. These gentlemen are here to arrest you. I want a confession and I want your key. Oh, that key. About a month earlier, I was sitting happily, spending time in study hall, and my friend, look, he has the padlock from his gym locker. Takes out a key, unlocks it. What? The reason that was so stunning was all of our padlocks were combination locks. They were issued by the school. They were all the same. You had to know a combination. Only the coach had the master key that unlocked them all. Have you stolen the master key? No, I made it. With a little ingenuity, my friend had vaulted from a low status 13-year-old school kid to a knight with unlimited power. I wanted this unlimited power. Teach me your secret. And he did. He told me how he did it. So that evening, I went home with my lost lock, took it apart, filed away. And pretty soon, I had the key to join the peerage of high status in my school. And then I put it in a drawer and forgot all about it. And there I was in the principal's office. He wanted that key. You see, what I hadn't realized is there had been a rash of Game Boy thefts in the gym lockers while the kids were out in PE. And my friend had been caught with a stolen Game Boy. And he confessed that it was I who sold it to him, that I had been stealing all the Game Boys. Friend, I do not think that word means what you think it means. So sure enough, I very trepidatiously called my mother, told her where my bag of secrets was in my chest of drawers. She, knowing nothing of any of this, comes to school and we just spill it out on the desk. Metal files, tumblers, pieces of lock, and the key that ensured that I was guilty. My protestations of innocence notwithstanding, I was clearly guilty. And then the principal caught it. I didn't see it. Thank goodness he did. My key was a normal key blank, long. The locks were normal padlock, short. It would unlock mine because I'd taken the faceplate off, and it would go all the way through and unlock it. But it could not possibly unlock an unmodified combination lock in the gym. I was exonerated. Whew. Close call. They found my friend's key and they found his cache of stolen Game Boys. Busted. I had wanted to learn a secret, not unlock gym locks, but I learned the key to delinquency. If you work to take a path that leads to an advantage in illegality, it goes to a door that few people can resist opening. Far better to leave those secrets unrevealed.
I'm going to share that and Edson. Here. Our next speaker speaking right away, and then wait till he gets all locked up there. And our next speaker.
There we go. I had it on mute, Rob. Like, yeah, like.
So Roger, you have to do yours over again. It was muted the whole time. All right, fellow Toastmasters, 2468. Who do we appreciate? Teachers. Everyone loves a teacher except the mischievous 10-year-old. And that was me in the 4th grade. I went to a private school where all the hoity-toity kids went. The kids from doctors and dentists and lawyers and rich grandparents. How did I end up at that school? What was called a hardship scholarship. The church that I went to had a certain set of funds available for kids who were financially destitute. And I was a foster child. My parents had very little money. We lived on the wrong side of the tracks. That's how I got into this school, this high-end private school. And there was another student there, Ricky McCoy. He was being raised by a single mother. The father had ran off with another woman. And poor Ricky, the church felt bad for him, and they had some funds for him as well. Of course, Ricky and I became best friends, and we could not wait to get into mischief. Now, our 4th grade teacher was Mrs. Bissett, but we didn't call her Mrs. Bissett. We called her Old Bitty Batty Bissett. She had probably come over on the wagon train. She did not have a whip, but she had a red rubber hose, and she had a temper. Now, Mrs. Bissett had some type of intestinal issue. Maybe she was lactose intolerant. We don't really know, but quite often she had to make very quick trips to the restroom. Now, there was a private bathroom there in our 3rd and 4th grade classroom, but it's only for Mrs. Bissett. We had to use the regular bathrooms for all the other kids. But when Mrs. Bissett would make her beeline to the bathroom, that's when Ricky and I would do our show. Now, we could tell when she was going in, when she was coming out, because she'd flip the light on and a fan would go on. We could hear the fan. Ricky and I would start doing our class clowning and cutting up, having so much fun. As soon as we heard the fan go off, back in our seats. Now, sometimes we just did it for fun to entertain our classmates. Sometimes we played special little tricks on Bitty Batty Bissett. Like we'd take her desk drawers and we'd switch them around. Now, this was kind of the long game because it'd take sometimes a couple of hours before she'd finally open a drawer and see that it was in the wrong place and have a fit. Who did this? Well, invariably, Tattletale Cindy would tell on us. It was either Ricky or myself, had to be. And Mrs. Bitt would come around with her red rubber hose. Now, she was older woman, and it was kind of hard for her to really bend way down. So what she would do is she'd lean her elbow on the desk and look right in our face, and with that red rubber hose, she'd whip it under the desk. Now, Ricky and I were experts at being hit with the red rubber hose, and we knew the trick. See, that desk had a single pole that came up, and if you positioned your legs just right, the brunt of that hose went against that metal pole. But she didn't know that. We didn't let her know that. We squealed like pigs. Ow, ow, ow. And when she heard a sufficient number of ows, she was satisfied. She went back to her seat. One day, Mrs. Bissett made her beeline to the bathroom. Ricky got up and he put something special under her little cushion on her seat. Mrs. Bissett came back in. We were in our seats. She sat down and let out the biggest roar and thunder you'd ever heard. It was the funniest thing in the world to everyone except to Mrs. Bissett. She was mad. You could tell because her face was beet red. First thing she did was looked at Cindy. Cindy, who did that? Cindy looked away. She knew if she tattled, she'd be in big trouble from Ricky and I. And then she came to me. She knew it was either me or Ricky. Eddie, did you do this? She was holding that whoopee cushion. No, Mrs. Bissett, I didn't do it. Who did it? There's no way I'm going to tattle on Ricky. I don't know, Mrs. Bissett. Well, she knew that was a lie. And of course, here came the red rubber hose. And she went to whack me on the legs, but I had a little trick up my sleeve. I looked straight ahead. Didn't bat an eye, didn't flinch, didn't even let out a squeal. And this infuriated Mrs. Bissett because she got no reaction from me. Every time she'd hit, I would just remain motionless. Well, when she was sufficiently satisfied with me, then it was time for Ricky. And Ricky was going to get even worse than me. She went over to Ricky and she started whipping Ricky with that red rubber hose. Now, Ricky had a trick up his sleeve that beat them all. He started to hum a little tune. And then he started to whistle this tune. We all knew the tune, and it was so infuriating Mrs. Bissett, she started hitting as hard as she could. And then he started to sing it. Who's afraid of the bitty batty wolf, the bitty batty wolf, the bitty batty wolf? She could not stand that. She hit Ricky so hard that her red rubber hose broke. And that was the end of Mrs. Bissett's red rubber hose. Now, as I grew older, I always thought that she was the meanest teacher I ever had. But when I look back, actually, I learned a lot of great things from Mrs. Bissett. And one of the things that she taught me that stuck with me to this day, there's something that you didn't do in private school. You didn't write with your left hand. And if you did, the teacher whacked you with the ruler. I got whacked so many times that I quit writing with my left hand, started writing with my right hand. To this day, I write with my right hand. Am I upset with Mrs. Bissett? No, because it's a right-hand world. She actually did me a favor. So I actually have an impact from even mean old bitty batty Bissett. I hope whatever mean teacher you had, they had an impact on you as well.
Ed's so good the paparazzi came out for you.
Yeah, if somebody had asked me, I certainly would have guessed that Ed probably was the one that got whacked more than anybody in the room, so. Our next speaker. And his speech title, Forget the System, Forget the System, Brian Forrest. Brian Forrest, Forget the System.
If you all see the fire alarm going off, it's because my speech is about to be heat. In high school, I was an all or nothing student. In classes I enjoyed, I'd give it my all. In classes I hated, I did nothing. For example, in my math class, I didn't even need formulas, no short division, no long division. I just got the answer. And about half of the time of the other students, then they'd pass my paper around like it was a blunt so they could each copy the answers off of it. In my kinesiology class, my teacher told me if I got an 100%, I was cheating. Lucky for him, I got 120%. I got a lot of A's. I even scored 90% on my IQ test. The other side was F's. I have what's called dyslexia. If I look at a paper for too long, it turns into alphabet soup. I can't read it, I can't eat it, it's no good. I still get my B's and D's backward, the lowercase ones, when I'm writing. So I always skipped on English class. I hated it. I even skipped one time to sneak into detention. That's how much. I was a very weird kid. I was half genius, half animal. They couldn't control me. I was very malnourished, skin and bone. I had bags under my eyes, and everybody was afraid of me. Matter of fact, one of the security guards, I was his martial arts instructor outside of school. Everybody was afraid of me. But my best friend was the most popular kid in school. So if you had to talk to him, best believe he had a bodyguard standing right next to him. I would often sneak into his class. One day in the morning, I'm walking towards school and I stop by the local donut shop. I pick myself up a custard and a couple of sugar packets from the dispensary. I go to my friend's class because he has a substitute, and she starts calling for roll call. Is this student here? Here. Is my friend here? Here. Is Sergio here? Sergio was absent, so I was Sergio. I raised my hand and I stayed there for about half the class until I decided to stand up. And I had a little bit of that sugar packet from the donut shop. Disclaimer, I did not do drugs in high school. I had a little bit of that sugar packet from the donut shop on my wrist. And I said, teacher, I don't understand what's going on in this class. And her jaw dropped. You should have seen it. I ran right out of the class. 10 minutes later, I come back into the classroom and said, teacher, you gotta try this. And I go again. She tried to grab me. I ran out, grabbed the trash can, and stick it in front of the door to barricade and run off the school campus. Security searched me for cocaine. All they found was sugar packets from the local donut shop. One of my more famous pranks, I stood up in sixth period and I wanted to leave, go home early. So in my usual fashion, I grab my backpack, sling it around my shoulder and say, forget the system. And I waltz out of class. Disclaimer, I no longer curse, but I did not say forget the system. I said F the system, the F word, and I walked out. Little did I know this would lead to my nickname in high school becoming F the system. I walked back in the next day and they said, what'd you say? I said F the system. So they started calling me it. Every time we had a substitute teacher, I would jump on the table and go F the system to the whole class, and I'd run out and go home. I never got in trouble. And the funny thing is, that was my nickname. They'd see me and call F the system to me. I don't even know what that means. But I think I can bring a meaning today. So I shouldn't have graduated because I struggled on subjects. But whenever we had a group project, I would be absent. My group would do the project. I'd come in on the final day and nobody would want to give the presentation. So I'd take the notes on something I know nothing about, get up, and we'd get an A because I would speak. See, the system didn't teach me how to public speak. There was no public speaking required in school. There was no presentation class, but we were all expected to give it. So forget the system, I'm giving that speech. The system was supposed to teach me how to read, but it didn't. After I left high school, I started reading books. Now I'm the fastest reader I know. I read books every day. So forget the system. Whatever environment you were brought up in, because you were maybe forced to go to that school as a kid and didn't have a choice, it doesn't matter. You can break away from that as long as you remember to forget the system.
You get it home. Okay.
Listen me.
Thank you, Brian. Next speaker, next to the last.
Oh, next to the last.
Unless someone could prop me out of speaking. Our next to the last speaker is, this will be fascinating because I have a hint about what she might. She didn't tell me anything. I'm just guessing. Hilda Valenzuela. I was in the closet. I was in the
Well, hello, Toastmasters. Who doesn't like friends? I love friends, and everybody wants a friend. When I was about in the 3rd or 4th grade, I was the most popular girl in school. Now, at 3rd and 4th grade, you know that I wasn't the most popular girl for the same reason that if I was in the 11th and 12th grade, that's not it. I was popular, and I had so many friends that wanted to be around me. Oh, do you want to come to my house? Oh, I was so cool, you would think. If it wasn't for the fact that the year before in 3rd grade, my mom had died of cancer. And every mother in town made sure that their kids were good to me because I was orphan nanny. And so I was popular. The problem was that with all these friends, I was making them miserable. All my friends, I was hurting them. And how did you figure that I could do that? I had no option. See, in the 70s, the communists were very popular. I don't know if you heard. The Cold War was at its best, and we had no food. So what the communists decided was that every day will be a parade, a slogan, a march, something like that, something to keep people away from the fact that they were starving and had no say-so. And every day there was some kind of something in the classroom where people had to stand up, the students had to stand up and salute the flag and wear complete uniforms. Well, I was the only one that didn't wear the bandana that identified me as a communist. Now, many, many times I thought about it and I said, is the bandana really important to me? I mean, could I just negate the fact that God exists and get a cookie? Because the ceremonial things that happen in the classrooms, if everybody had their uniforms, they got a cookie. And my classroom never got the cookie. Never. Every time that revision came by, there was no bandana, and I hear the words, the monitor said into the classroom, they're not 100% uniformed, no pass. Well, imagine a classroom full of students who were the only ones that didn't get a cookie. This is the age of ration. A cookie meant a lot. One day, I looked and there was a closet. Now, there are no supplies. Again, 70s, Mother Russia, no supplies. The closet is empty. And I thought, what if I sneak into the closet? So as soon as the monitor came up, and it was the monitors were different students who were chosen for the day to go class by class, making sure that they were all uniform. As soon as that happened, I ran into the closet. And yes, I was that skinny. It was that big. And I looked, and there were the
little vents that you could see the classroom, and I heard the most wonderful words. The entire class is uniform. They passed. And I thought, oh, I did it. I really did it. I went into the closet, and every one of my friends was happy. I really became the most popular person then, because now they got a cookie and then they like me. Imagine this. To make my friends happy, I had to be in the closet every day. Now, I got home with my big idea and I told my dad what I did, and I said, I figured it out. And he said, and the teacher let you do that? I said, yeah. And she knows that you went into the closet? Yeah. These people have no morals, no standards. She's letting you lie. That's not the way to do things. She cannot do that because, well, she's okay with it and I'm okay with it. My father told me just in the 4th grade, I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want to be popular and get a cookie for everybody? Do you want to wear the bandana and negate your faith? Do you want to stand up and no one gets a cookie? I'll leave you the choice is yours. Well, on 4th grade, my moral standard was that I wanted to make everybody happy. So I went into the closet every single day, and my classroom got a cookie every single day, and we all worked. And the teacher looked at me like, go ahead and hide, child. There's no problem with immorality. Mr. Toastmaster.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to finish. I know we have a program next month, but I have one story. I have to tell a joke because I love telling jokes. Mother yells up to Johnny, Johnny, you got to get up. You're going to be late for school. And Johnny says, no, I don't want to go to school. Oh, but don't you know you have to go to school? He says, I said, well, why don't you want to go to school? And she said, well, the kids all hate me. Oh, I don't think that's possible. But you could go and adjust to that and get them to like you better. It's, well, the teachers all hate me. Now, but that's just impossible to believe. They probably don't all know you even. They can't all hate you. No, they do. They do. You still have to go to school. And she said, but why do I have to go to school? And she says, because you're the principal. And with that, we will thank you all for being here, and we will see you next month with more. We will see you somewhere. We will see you either online or here with 15 or so more school stories. And I hope you all enjoyed your evening and learned something and had a good time. Thank you all for being here.